Hi, good afternoon, good morning. My name is Kenton Chance of Eyewitness News, and I'm coming to you live from Kingston, St. Vincent, where a number of persons have come out onto the streets of the city to protest proposed changes to the public health law. And what you're seeing now is a part of that demonstration. The majority of the crowd, they were gathered at outside the House of Assembly in Kingston, but they're now, it seems, making a lap around the city. If you've been following us on Eyewitness News, you might have known that the government is going to make some changes to the law. Yes. Once again, this is Kenton Chance, and I'm coming to you live from Kingston, St. Vincent, where protests are taking place against changes to the Public Health Act. The government is proposing to remove the word voluntary from in front of immunization, vaccination, in the Public Health Act, and it's making a change where persons who object to who actually exempted from COVID-19 vaccination on medical grounds. A note from their doctor would not suffice, but that note would have to get the authorization of the chief medical officer. And persons have come out on the streets of the capital to protest against that, and that is essentially what you're seeing there right now. For joining us. This is Kenton, Chance of Eyewitness News. I'm coming to you live outside of the Parliament building here in Kingston, St. Vincent, where protesters have gathered to show their dissatisfaction with some proposed changes to the Public Health Act that will come to the floor for debate and possible passage today. There are two amendments to the law. The first is that the government is going to remove the word voluntary from in front of vaccination. And the second amendment would say that any worker for whom vaccination is required, who is seeking an exemption, can do so on two grounds. One is health and the second is religious. But if a worker is objecting to vaccination based on health grounds, then a note from his or her doctor so proclaiming, so informing would not suffice. But that note would have to get the subsequent approval of the Chief Medical Officer before that worker can be exempted from vaccination. As it regards exemption on religious grounds, the Prime Minister said yesterday that that religious belief has to be deeply held. It's not clear how that is to be determined. Also, there are some regulations that are going to be formulated once the act becomes law, once the changes of the law are approved by the Parliament. But the Prime Minister said that those regulations are still in the draft stages. But based on what he said, what we do know is that nurses, police officers, airport employees, immigration officers, customs officers, they will be required to be vaccinated if they are to continue working in those posts. Interestingly, the Prime Minister says that the law is not mandating vaccination. However, if a worker is to continue in that post, and this would apply to the private and public sector, if a post requires vaccination and the person wants to be exempt, then they can continue to work if their employer can find an alternative post for them. So I'm not too sure how exactly the details of that would work. Maybe a police officer might become a teacher if a teacher is not required, if teachers are not required to vaccinate. But I'm not too sure as regards maybe nurses, if a nurse chooses to be exempt and there is no additional post for him or her, how that is going to work. There's some people here. I'm going to try to talk to a few of them. I don't know, see if they could. Excuse me, miss. My name is Kenton Chance of Eyewitness News. You're live on Facebook. Can I ask you, why did you choose to join the protest?
Our right to freedom is something that was God given and should not be taken by anyone.
So you think you're being this law would deprive you of that right?
Definitely. Not only me, but my patient and my family.
Generally, it is said that in St. Vincent there's a climate of fear, but you as a nurse, you're here in your uniform. Are you afraid of any repercussions from coming here?
Whatever is to come, I know.
Can I ask you, how long have you been a nurse?
Over 20 years.
And what exactly is your level?
I'm a staff nurse.
You're a staff nurse, which is a supervisory position.
No, it can be, but I'm a staff nurse midwife.
Okay. And do you have duty today? Do you have to report to work today, or so you came to town, put on your uniform just to participate in this? Okay, thank you very much for speaking to me. Okay, so this is a nurse who's in midwifery who chose to speak to me. She said that she's not working today. She says she's a nurse and she's a child of God, and she believes that there should be freedom of conscience and she should be given that choice to take that vaccine. And she thinks that the changes to the law would deprive her of that choice. She is not working today. And she said she put on her uniform and came into Kingston just to participate in the protest. There's a little bit of lull, if one can call it that, in the intensity of the protest now. A few moments ago, there was a lot of drumming and blowing of noisemakers and what have you. But that has dissipated for the time being. It's a pretty hot day here in St. Vincent. Of course, it's August, which is generally a very hot month for us here in the tropical part of the world. So it's really hot, so hydration is going to become very important. Among the groups I was saying to you before I was speaking to the nurse, that who would be directly affected based on what the Prime Minister says, police officers. But based on the laws in civil and grenades, police officers cannot really protest in the way that other public sector workers can. When we were outside of the police headquarters, I saw some police officers peeping through the windows and recording with their mobile devices. We have this placard that said the law now makes CMO super doctor, and I think that is referring to the fact that if you want to be exempted and your doctor says that you should be exempted from this vaccine on medical grounds, that would only be accepted if the chief medical officer agrees with that assessment by your doctor. Let me try to speak to these ladies and see if they're that. Hi, my name is Kenton Chance of Eyewitness News. Can I ask you, why did you decide to join the protest today?
Well, I joined the protest because I'm a teacher and I'm not an anti-vaxxer by any means, but I just don't believe that vaccine should be forced on those who don't want to take it. And if you respect the choices of those who chose to take it, then those who chose not to take it should make the same mistake.
The government is saying that it's not forcing anyone to take vaccines, but there are certain positions for which vaccines would be required. And if you want to stay in those positions, you either take the vaccine or ask to be transferred elsewhere if the employer agrees. What are your views?
What is that? What is that? It's just saying It's just saying that it's mandatory in a whole long paragraph. That's it. You're just basically saying it's mandatory, but you're using a whole set of rigmarole to say it.
So if the proposed changes do become law, would you take the vaccine? Would you ask if you don't get a transfer, what would you do? Would you quit your job as a teacher?
Well, we'll see. We'll cross that big bridge when we get to it.
Are you afraid to protest today?
But no, I'm not at all. Not at all. I'm not afraid to protest. It's my right. I was given this right to protest. So why should I be afraid? What is there to be afraid of?
All right. Thank you very much for speaking to me. So that's a teacher who's expressing a view. This man is holding a sign that says PSU says, "My body, my choice." Hello, sir. My name is Kenton, Chance of Eyewitness News. You're live on Eyewitness News on Facebook. Can I ask you why did you join the protest today?
Well, I'm not really joining the protest. I'm in support of my PSU organization, which have been various issues. Even this vaccination issue is an issue with our union. We have other issues in terms of workers' rights and mental health issues. So we've always been at the forefront of protest, and we lead in this protest again in terms of representation for the workers' rights of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. I'm not really the PRO, but I'm just putting my opinion based on my union. Thank you very much.
Can I ask you what are your views on vaccination?
Well, my views on vaccination personally, and this is not the choice of the PSU. For me personally, it's a personal thing. You should be given that right according to your doctor or whoever you consulted with, whether you're religious belief or what have you. I think it should be a personal choice, and this should be good to some level of consultation before it is passed before the House or something.
Well, the government did say that you can get an exemption from your doctor, but it has to be approved by the Chief Medical Officer.
That is the issue that we are protesting with, and I think the majority of the other workers are protesting with that particular measure.
So I presume that you work in the public sector?
Yes, I'm working in the public sector.
Do you mind if I ask you where? Where do you?
No, I'd rather not say where, although it's I'd rather not say where.
All right, thank you very much, sir, for speaking to me. Okay, so that's an protest today. I'm just walking around and speaking to random people while we might be able to hear ourselves during this lull, no music and all of that. Good afternoon, sir. My name is Kenton, Chance of Eyewitness News. You're live on Facebook. Do you mind if I ask you why did you join the protest?
Well, I would have to say I don't agree with the mandatory vaccination that the government is seeking to pass. And as I said, I don't believe that the vaccination, my vaccination status should determine my employment status. And that is where it is seemingly headed.
The government has said, the Prime Minister has said that the vaccination is not mandatory. But you're suggesting that that's your understanding.
That is what he says, but it is coming over different to me. My perception is while we're not saying, if I am not vaccinated, I think if PM Vincent said this, then you're not expected earlier, then you won't be expected to turn up to work. And if you don't work, you can't get paid. So in my mind, it seems to say get vaccinated or find another job.
Do you mind if I ask you where in the public sector you work?
I work at customs.
At the customs?
Customs and exchange.
Okay, as a customs officer? Or?
Graduate officer.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
And you, sir, do you mind if I ask you where you're wearing your uniform? You're customs officer also?
That's right. I do believe that I'm first of intention, a human, before I am a customs officer. So I see where my basic human rights is being threatened, and so I believe that as a citizen, I have a responsibility to stand there to the end, show that I am in disagreement.
As far as you see it, in what ways or in what way is your right, your basic human right, as you say it, being threatened?
Well, the Prime Minister is there and he seems to explain, but when you listen to him, he resolves to the point where he's saying, well, if you don't take this vaccine as a frontline worker, if your employer can accommodate you at some other place, tells me that then if they cannot accommodate you, you have no job. So he was saying to us that you have to be vaccinated to have a job here in this country. And to me, this is just the beginning, because it could spill over to the ordinary citizens right across our nation. So, for me, I believe that every citizen should have been out here today.
Are you taking time off from work, or did you come into Kingston just to participate in the protest?
Well, mainly for the protest, but I did come out and I first went into the walk area and then I proceeded here to the protest.
Okay, thank you very much, sir.
Yes, sir, you're welcome.
And we see here Mr. Oswald Robinson, who's president of the Teachers Union. Mr. Robinson, do you mind if I just want to ask you a few questions. My name is Kenton, Chance of Eyewitness News. You're live on Facebook. Why are you here, sir?
Well, first of all, I'm a Vincent Chan. I am very patriotic, and I stand to uphold the Constitution of St. Vincent and Grenadines. I believe in fundamental rights and freedom of people, and I am also standing here to be marked among the other Vincent Chans who are here that history would be marked, that we stood up for justice, for equality, and also for our children and the future generations. The issue here is we are fighting against mandatory vaccination. The government of St. Vincent and the Grenadines has decided to remove that right, that fundamental right of conscience, and that is unconstitutional, and we are standing here for a worthy cause.
Justice now we want.
What difference do you think your presence here or the presence of these protesters will make to what happens across the street in the House of Assembly?
Well, if the government believes in democracy, democracy is for the people, by the people and of the people, and the masses here are standing, formed together with one voice, and any government that believes in wisdom would do the right thing, to listen to the voice of the people.
And what if the law does go through and the government...
Well, this will not stop. We will take it to another level.
What level would that be?
The people will decide. We will protest and ensure that the government go back and amend what is amending today and do the right thing.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Robinson. Miss, do you want to say something? Okay, so that's Mr. Oswald Robinson. He's the president of the SVG Teachers Union. And these are just some of the sites here. So everybody here are nurses. Nurses are standing up. Okay, so all of these people here, they are nurses, some in their uniform, some out of uniform, and they're registering their view on the proposed law. This is PSU says, can you guarantee us that the vaccines are safe? PSU says, do no harm. My body, my choice. My body, my right. No to mandatory vaccination. So it seems that these people are standing with the backing of their union in their opposition to changes to the... Yes, nurses are standing with the backing of their union. Just to show you some of the signs that we have here. What legal ramifications you have, legal protection standing, that you can force me to take this vaccine. This one simply says, kill the bill. No to amending the Public Health Act. No. And the ultimate decision will be made across the street in this building, which is the House of Assembly, which is in session right now. The bill is not scheduled to come up. It is not likely to come up for a few hours more, because the Parliament has started a new order paper today that includes questions, and just before noon they were just up to congratulatory remarks. So we'll try our best to keep you abreast of what is happening here throughout the course of the day. This is Kenton Chance reporting live from Kingston, St. Vincent. Thank you for joining us, and remember to click that blue button to be notified of the next time we are live. Thank you very much.